they're talking about. Um, okay, so I mentioned there's this agreement. I can't remember what it's called. I still can't remember what it's called. I couldn't remember what it was called last time. I still don't remember what it's called. It has to do with it's an agreement to ensure that if American soldiers uh, commit war crimes, essentially. Um, I'm using uh, slightly heightened language, but I mean, okay, so let's go back to Abu Ghraib, right? What the Americans have been doing since then, and like this is not a big. I think that if you really look at this and analyze it closely, it's really it's grounds for revulsion. Okay. If you go back to Abu Ghraib, what the Americans did as a response to Abu Ghraib was they ensured that now, whenever Americans are in a country, whenever they're occupying a country, there has to one be an agreement that shows that that country invited them in, which means that the occupation is consensual, right? It's this concept of consensual rape. And number two, but there are these agreements in place that prevent the local legal systems from prosecuting the American mercenaries, right? um, so, under the agreement that the Americans have gotten out of the Iraqis now, something like Abu Ghraib would not be able to be prosecuted, um, at least not under Iraqi law. Those people would need to be prosecuted under American law. Now they throw around, you know, absurd scenarios like if a soldier has to shoot somebody, for stealing something and it accidentally hits a kid on the way, once the bullet goes through the thief, no, and these are the kinds of scenarios that you will hear in order to uphold um, uh, the agreement of this sort, right? But the truth is, um, it's a little bit of propaganda, right? What I wanted to point out was that what she's saying here, and what she's saying, I mean, like, the exchange that's happening here between the State Department and the journalist is exactly why the situation was designed the way it is, and you can tell that she's practiced it a couple of times, right? It's like the the routine swimming move kind of thing, right? Like one of the first things she was taught, probably. Oh, just a second here. Sorry, I need some sleep. I was just a little bit worried that I was going into another headache because I was getting that same kind of inability to bring up ideas. I'm not, though, I don't think. Although I'll note that I have the window closed or I did have the window closed because it's getting cold tonight. Anyways, what I was pointing out is that she's pushing, this whole bit that there's no ambiguity under international law. International law is very clear. Is that a country that's invited in, that's legal, right? I just want to point out that she's not really correct because there is a concept in contract law called duress. And while I don't think that that's been ever applied at the international level, there are at least examples in history, right? So there's this point in the lead up to the Second World War where Czechoslovakia allows for Germany to occupy its territory. And it was legal. They invited them in. We don't look at it that way in history books anymore, right? I think that if we actually made this case in a fair court, with a fair judge and under the auspices of a fair trial, um, these agreements, as they exist in Iraq and in Afghanistan, would both be thrown out under the argument that they were produced under duress. So the thing about law, though, is that it's only as powerful as it can be, as the enforcement mechanism. And if you can come up with an enforcement mechanism to force the Americans to follow the rule of law, well, I'd like to hear it.